Elijah Extall, who was also a teaching fellow very recently, and wanted to have Megan Webb present and haze him because she was, like Mariska was to Emily, was the campus director for Elijah, but she is sick. But she sent me some stuff and I want to read it. But before I do, I'd just say a couple things about Elijah. He is also has that kind of effect on everyone he touches. So he's now in Teach for America. And I see the, sort of the executive director of TFA all the time. And he's always saying, like, Elijah's unbelievable. Like, I don't know what you guys are doing over there, but like, you gotta send us more like Elijah. The Dearborn Principle, where Elijah teaches. So Jose is always raving about Elijah. So the kind of impact that he's having in the world is not just within our circle. The other thing is, what am I going to do to get Elijah on my kickball team next year? Because that's 2 years in a row where he's not been on my team and I keep losing to Derek. I need to co-opt this guy, all right? Because I'm sick of losing to him in kickball. All right, I'm going to read you some things that Megan wanted to convey. First thing she writes about Elijah. He's a role model to all of his students, many of whom still call him and stop by his apartment to check in. All right, I don't know what that is. Let's talk about that afterwards. Two students to highlight. Emmanuel Laguerre, who is also now involved in our alumni program, who calls Elijah me in 10 years. Emmanuel came into his 8th grade year with plenty of confidence, but not all the skills needed to back it up. Elijah helped him to see the value and necessity in putting in the hard work it takes to build his academic and professional skills to complement his strong social skills. Emmanuel is now more successful and better able to use the resources available to him to manage the significant academic and social challenges of moving from a BPS middle school to an elite private school setting. Something that I think, Elijah, you went to a private school, so you were able to kind of give him some of that knowledge. So we're going to juxtapose Emmanuel with James Newton. James Newton was a special ed student who spent 2 years at the Wilson and 2 years at the McCormick. That's 4 years of middle school and 4 years of citizen schools at our old Wilson program and then the DMC program. James's reading and math skills were significantly lower than his peers, and he entered his 8th grade year taller, older, and far less motivated than any of his classmates. Elijah worked with his teacher to incentivize homework completion and to invest James in the bigger picture of life beyond middle school. James didn't graduate at the end of his 8th grade year, but he worked all summer, often at headquarters, and earned his 8th grade diploma just in time to start high school in the fall. James continues to intern on campus and also stays in touch with Mr. H. His most recent career goal is to someday teach at the same school as Elijah, which is really cool. And lastly, Megan wanted me to say, Elijah has developed a critical balance of the big brother role and the teacher role. He vigilantly maintains high expectations while also forming lasting bonds with each of his students. When his students look back on their grade school years, I have no doubt that they will see him as one of the most powerful positive influences that set them on a path to success. She misses you, she loves you, and she sends her best from her sick bed at home. So we're going to ask Elijah to say a few things, and I think you're going to see some common themes in terms of deep investment in students. So without further ado, Elijah.
Thank you. So before I begin, I've been requested to give a couple shout outs. So for people who are continually supporting me and in the past and in the present, the most beautiful woman in the world, Hannah Smith, gets a shout out. And the second most beautiful woman, Megan Berg, also gets a shout out. So I actually wrote something, so I'm just going to read it because I feel like that'll be a little bit easier. I hope you guys can understand me. And that was a great segue talking about investment, because that's a lot of what I'm going to speak about today. So it doesn't seem that long ago that I was sitting on these big red stairs pretty much asking myself, how in the world would I become a teacher, let alone a successful one? Bless you. And right now I have like a really interesting feeling. It's a combination of deja vu and a little bit of disbelief, thinking back about a year and a half ago when I was still a teaching fellow. It is very cool to come back, and it doesn't seem like that long, and I feel like I've grown so much since I've come here, and I've grown so much since I started here. One of the things I began reflecting about when I was asked to come speak is how it feel when I came back. And that kind of brought me back to thinking about how I used to sit on these stairs on Friday afternoons and what I was doing with my work as a teaching fellow. And to be honest, sometimes I thought I was doing the most important work in the world, the stuff that Pat was talking about. I was preparing students for high school. I was, developing individuals with great character. I was teaching professionalism. And then there was those days that you kind of heard about where I was like, why the hell did I sign up for this job? Those were usually on paydays. It was also when I was spending 50 minutes cutting out value stars, or when I was on the T for 2 hours riding to Ashmont, back to Revere, and then back again with my students. But either way, it was a great foundation for kind of where I'm at today. So teaching something that's not very easy, and I'm pretty sure you guys have all heard that before. But when I think about what I take away from the fellowship, it was actually a lot, and it brings me back to the very first day of the fellowship. I'm sure Eric kind of gave us this speech on the first day of training, and he was talking about, everyone share out one individual that affected you when you were in middle school. And everyone's like, oh, my coach, my teacher, my parent, my mentor. And I was thinking about that, and kind of like what happened to me in middle school, what I wanted to do, what invested me, and what invested me when I was at Citizen Schools. In my classroom now, I have shout-outs, which I'm sure that everybody still does at their campus. I created a core value crown this year, so my school has 3 core values, and every other week I write a rap, and I get on this table at my cafeteria, and I literally have the kids like waving their arms up in the air, just so I can sing about who's being respectful, responsible, and and the kids are so into it. And granted, I have little baby 6th graders, but now the 8th graders are looking over and they wear like this corny crown from iParty, and they like walk around the campus like thinking they're big and bad, and they look so silly. But realistically, like Citizen Schools had a huge impact, and that goes back to those days when I was cutting out those value stars, and those days that I was sitting there trying to invest students and not just doing all of the stuff that was holistic, the whole child, the growth factor with our students, but also like the little things that you guys are staying here to do, the things when you see like Jen Shirk at 8 p.m. on a Friday working diligently, like telling the custodians that she'll take care of the lights because she's here so often. Those little things that kind of laid the foundation for how I feel about how I need to invest in my students. That being said though, it just isn't about my classroom or doing it in the class. And I think that's very obvious, because Citizen Schools wouldn't exist if everything could happen in the classroom. And thinking back to what Eric said, and thinking about how Citizen Schools is at the forefront of kind of ed reform, schools are very different now. I was thinking when I was reflecting on this, and I was thinking back to that very first day where Eric was like, who was influential to you, to every single one of the teaching fellows, and you wanted to hear from everybody, to hear about that caring adult that you could potentially be. And I was like, I'm thinking about what was middle school like for me. And I think that a lot of people in this profession, and a lot of people in Citizen Schools, or just in education in general, are like, what can I do to make these kids feel like how I felt in middle school, when I felt good? And honestly, I think there's a big problem with that, because I see Citizen Schools as an entity that did not exist, or just was beginning to exist when I was in middle school. That would have drastically kind of changed the landscape of what middle school was. I haven't been able to read this on and on. To kind of go, just honestly give my best piece of advice, and I want to be short and sweet, is to just say that schools are very different. So whether you're a teaching fellow, whether you're marketing, tech specialist, whether you are a campus director, Citizen Schools is part of the school now. So I kind of want people to think in that light, because as soon as because I go into my school every day, and one of the biggest things that I've taken away besides investment, besides culture, is thinking about how I can utilize every single partner who comes into my school. Because as a teaching fellow, there are days and there are teachers who think you're incompetent, who think you can't do anything, that think you just sit there with the kids, and it's not true. So coming from that other side, I'm like, oh, City, you're coming. I need you. I need 5. I'll take 20 people in my room if you let me, and I'll utilize them. We'll figure out how to make it work. So I want just to kind of leave you with advice to think about not what middle school was like for you, but to be transformational, to be a new school. What the new age school is what our kids need. They don't need good teachers, they need great teachers. They don't need good schools, they need amazing schools. And a part of that reform effort is changing the perception of not only what they think school is, but what we think school is. And Citizen School is a large part of that. Whether you're Colin and you're filming me right now, whether you're Allie Reeder and you are a Deputy Campus Director at the Irving, whether you are a teaching fellow first year, second year, or whether you're the Executive Director of the Bay State.
Wicked, great.
Yeah, wicked, great. That's new. Regardless of your role, you have to look and envision what Citizen Schools is as a part of the school. And one of the last things I want to say is that it really bothered me during the fellowship when I would hear people talking to individuals or family members who don't work in urban schools, and it still bothers me when I have teachers who talk to individuals who don't work in urban schools and they say, oh my God, what, you couldn't imagine what my kid did today. He threw a chair at me, he like swore, gave me the finger, he said, suck my dick to Emily, whatever it is, because that's drastically altering people's perceptions of what the beautiful things about our kids and the beautiful things about our schools, and especially when people are like, I can't do anything, my school, blah, blah, blah. My school did this, it is my school's fault that this. You are the school. You are a part of the school. You need to drastically transform the school. And I think that I've seen that, and I've seen people who have envisioned that. There are wonderful people like Megan Bird who see that, and those are the people who are being successful, and those are the people who are going to continue to be successful. So my piece of advice is take everything. It's going to be some challenges. There's going to be some not so fun things that you do, but every single thing that you do is a little piece that drives student achievement, and that's ultimately what we're aiming for. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.